All right, welcome everybody to the second episode of the Training Gun. My name is Dora Moreno, also known as Weasel Control, and I am part of Team Control. And today we're going to be talking about another deck that's been hitting the standard format scene as of late. We're going to be messing around with the Manectric deck that's combined with Crobat. Manectric is one of those cards that is pretty flexible in the sense that they can be played with a bunch of other options depending on what the metagame looks like. But before I continue, I just want to introduce one of my team members, my control members. Um, he's been playing with me in the same group for what? How many years, Pat?
I would say about 15 years.
God,
Not,
15 years.
not
Holy sh!
seriously, but about 15 years. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Like that's a whole long time, and we've gone through like the worst losses and the best victories and everything in between.
Yeah.
And it's my honor to introduce Patrick Robinson.
Thank you.
He's
Thank you.
going to he's going to be he's going to be featured occasionally on this episodic series that I'm creating, as well as a bunch of podcasts that we're planning for the near future. He'll be on pretty much all the podcasts, if not most of them, and he'll be occasionally on these deck analysis episodes that we do.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna run through the list of cards. I'm gonna say my piece on it, and then Patrick, you'll share your opinion on how you feel. If I've missed anything, I'm sure Patrick will pick up the pieces. He has a little bit more experience in the format, 2015, 2016, than I do, so I think his insight is a lot more valued than mine's in terms of experience and maybe even like knowledge based on what he's seen in playing
Yeah.
rather than theoretical or hypothetical. Um, all right. So, like I said, this is a Manectric Crobat deck. Essentially, the whole concept of the deck is Manectric is pretty fast, pretty easy attacker, and is strong, but lacks slightly in the one-hit knockout department for other EXs. Which is not necessarily a bad thing if the strategy you're going for is more defensive, which he can employ. But this deck tends to lean a little bit more towards the aggressive side, and it utilizes Crobat to pick up the pieces where Manectric might be lacking. Um, Anything you want to share about that? Is that spot on? Is that right, Pat?
That is definitely spot on. Also, I mean, Manectric doesn't hit hard like you just said to piggyback off of you. But he does compensate for the energy distribution throughout your board. So
Exactly.
I will take
Definitely.
the 110, which he does, which is his only attack, and Mega Manectric that is, because Manectric regular Manectric does do 20, and then 20 bounce to the bench, and then the other thing is 60-60. So yeah, but it does
Yeah.
compensate for energy distribution throughout your board, which makes it kind of difficult to keep up with once he gets going.
Yeah, and that usually happens by turn two at the earliest,
Yeah,
and that's a lot of pressure to put on your opponent when um, perhaps they're trying to keep up with taking out just one Manectric. Mega Manectric becomes pretty much of a big tank. Um, Not the biggest tank you see on the board, but big enough so that he can even potentially take two or three hits, and before he gets knocked out. And while he's doing that, he's going to be feeding his board with other Manectrics and potentially Raikou, which I have in the deck as well. Um, the focus really is, at least in this version of my deck, is regular Manectric. And the reason why is because I feel like he's easier to manage to get out on the board. It's pretty effortless. You put two energies on him, put tools on your opponent, or they do it themselves, and you're good to go. 120 every time. Maybe even 140 with a muscle band. And then Crobat can pick up the pieces, like I said before. You also have a couple trainers that allow you to either take more hits or dish out more damage, which means you may not need as many Crobat or Crobats to deliver extra damage to pick up the pieces, so you don't have to depend so heavily on it and potentially utilize them for bench attacks or um, maybe time them more properly and utilize your supporters and in order to less recycle your Golbat and Crobats and more on supporting the state of the game at the time. Um, Four Manectric is here. He's a standard of the deck, main core of it. Pretty simplistic. Patrick already went through what he does. I'm gonna just kind of overview it again. Overrun does 2020. Seems pretty simple. With a Muscle Band, it does 40-20. With that and a Giovanni's, that's 60-20. Highly unlikely that you'll get that, but the possibility is there. And you also have Golbats and Crobats that can hit the bench for easy damage too. So, like, if you really wanted to pick off something really small, you have the ability to do so with a one energy attack. So it's pretty simple, pretty easy, and it always keeps that underlying threat for your opponent to keep in mind, just in case they want to put something small on the bench, and have to worry whether or not it's going to get knocked out. It's one of your options, and it puts a little pressure for your opponent to deal with. Main attack is Assault Laser. Again, Patrick said 60-60. 60 damage at its core, but 120 if they have a tool on them. It allows you to kind of capitalize on the fact that a lot of people use tools, if not everybody in the competitive scene. If you find an EX that doesn't have a tool on it, just in the sense that they're trying to avoid the 120, you can just put a head ring on them, and not only put pressure on them by doing 120, but adding an extra energy for their attacks. It's pretty threatening, and it's tough to deal with, even to the point that maybe that Pokemon might have to retreat and not be in the forefront.
Yeah.
In order to avoid that.
To add on to what Darrell's saying, the reason why Manectric is, I would say, one of the best megas in the format right now and has continued with its success. Mega Manectric, normal Mega Manectric, it's doing something that another EX is not doing right. Other EXs are not doing right now. It's chasing the bench. So a lot of EXs don't do that, and Manectric synergy goes so well with a lot of things, especially that 1/1 colorless one electric attacks. It's splashable in a lot of things, and that's why you see Manectric all over the metagame, whether it's extended or standard, which we're doing here today.
Yeah, we're doing standard here. And this version of the deck only utilizes it in a pure lightning sense, but there are a ton of options. I've seen it with fighting, psychic, dark. I've seen it with water. And those are all viable options depending on how your metagame is looking like. And Manectric, when he's splashed in the deck and you need him to do something, he does it. He has his job and he does it well. To finalize Pat's point, Overrun hits the bench. Have a Crobat on something that's 50 HP, and that's a knockout while putting extra damage on the forefront, and not dedicating a lot of resources to that. That's a one energy attack, and it can potentially kill something that's trying to set up for later on. So it's really, really solid and really good. The Manectric EX is kind of an option that I've added for this version of the deck. It's not the main core of the deck, like you might see in other versions of Manectric decks. But I left it here as an option because I feel like sometimes 170 might be a sweet spot of an HP for other Pokemon to hit. And like I've said last episode, prize exchange and prize denial is really important in standard. So you want to be able to deny your opponent of taking prizes that are crucial. So adding Manectric EX and his Mega Form combined, even if it's only 2 and 2 Manectric Spirit Link, it allows you to choose when you want to do it, if you need it. Get that extra HP, deny opponent a prize, and even set up for future turns, whether it's a Raikou or another Manectric, if you need it, which you most likely will.
Yeah.
Another thing I wanted to talk about, I know we're talking about Manectric EX a lot right now. It is the core of the deck, so I think it's prudent that we do so. There's a really cool combination that you might see in either playtesting or actual tournament, where you have Manectric EX, and I'm jumping ahead a little, jumping the gun a bit, by talking about my trainers, but I'll get to them in full later. You have Manectric EX, You want to use Assault Laser, and your opponent doesn't have a tool, and he's an EX, so you put a Head Ringer on them. So they're probably forced to use something like Double Dragon or Double Rainbow, which are special energies. And since Manectric EX doesn't necessarily have to evolve into Mega, you can also put a an assault vest. So not only that forces them to use an extra energy, you gain the extra attack damage, and you have an assault vest that minuses 48 damage from them. So it's a really cool combo to make it really difficult for them to put all the pieces together in order just to hit you. It's a lot of like I said, he puts a lot of pressure on your opponent. The right combination of cards makes it extremely difficult for them.
Yep.
Let's go to Raikou. Raikou is one of those things that isn't necessarily needed in the deck, but I thought I would put two copies of the card in the deck because I'm all about non EX options, especially in a format where standard is more about prize exchange and prize denial and prize race and all that stuff. Raikou is one of the more tankier EXs. I mean non EXs, excuse me. One of the more tankier non EXs. Where his HP is 120, but if you read his ability, Shining Body, and if it has any lightning energies, which the whole deck is pretty much made of, any damage done to him is minus 20. So given that you don't have a Hex Maniac right now happening, um that's a really good ability to have. It makes his HP at the very least 140, at the most maybe 160, 180. That's a lot of HP for a Pokemon.
That is bananas for a
That's
basic
pretty.
Pokemon
Yeah,
right now. Yeah.
that's for a basic Pokemon to have a potential EX level HP. There's no doubt why he's being used so much in the metagame. Not completely, but he's seeing some play, and it makes sense. His attack um is three colorless, 50 plus 20 for every lightning energy. So since the whole deck is lightning, Manectric giving it to Raikou just makes the most sense. It looks like the sweet spot of damage for this deck is about 110. You could do 120 with Manectric EX. But usually you want to expect 110 because that's what's gonna be happening. And um, considering that like you have 20s and 30s, you have damage manipulation in the deck too with Golbat and Crobat and Giovanni's and uh, Muscle Band and all that stuff. So it kind of just like it's fun to be able to utilize the options you have to sort out the damage you want for the deck. I think that's pretty awesome.
Yep.
Um, let's start with let's I'll do Shaman too. Shaman, pretty self-explanatory, staple of the deck.
All
I play at
around
least two.
goodness. Yeah.
It's I mean that's an understatement. It's it's the best card I
You
think.
know, you got to be modest a little bit. You know.
I guess
Just a little bit. You know,
Scruffy.
it's just a
Just
shaman. No,
just the
don't worry about
Shaman. Is that all?
it.
Yeah,
It's just a
whatever. That's all he
necessity.
does.
No, yeah.
It's only needed in every deck. Whatever. No biggie, right? Uh, so Scruffy is here. He does setup. Put him on the bench. Drops 6. Have a nice day. What's cool about this deck is that the inclusion of AZ makes it possible for you to use it up again. And for some reason, if your opponent wants to, I guess, do Parallel City to you, which might hurt your deck a little bit, but you can just get rid of your Shamans. You don't really have a counter stadium to this deck because I didn't feel like any counter stadium would be really good. Um, Rough Seas maybe, but I feel like it would have been a little lacking, and I feel like the spaces with Zubat and Crobat and Golbat
It's
take up a
very
lot of
tight.
space.
Yeah.
It
Very
becomes
tight.
very tight when you include Crobats in the deck. So I opted out of that. But like other versions that may not use the Crobat line, you could definitely put like Rough Seas, Silent Lab, Parallel City of your own, anything like that, and it would be totally viable as well. It'll sacrifice a lot of the damage that you can do, but it can potentially open up options and maybe add a little defense that you might want, if that's your playstyle. All right, let's go to trainers.
Trainers.
Uh, Sycamore. We were just talking about Shaman. Sycamore is pretty much the same thing, right? The
Yeah.
staple every deck. I've seen a
Shaman Tiles too. Shaman Tiles too.
yes. I've seen people cut down a little bit on the numbers for
They have
Sycamore.
been they have been cutting down on numbers. Me
Um,
personally, I have been getting the most horrible luck ever. I'm thinking that that's why everybody else cut down because they're just throwing away resources and they get those funky, awkward hands when they just don't want to do it and they just want to conserve
yeah,
rather
I
than
kind of
just
I
throw
agree to
away.
that.
Yeah,
I agree with that mentality. People are feeling like they're stuck with things they don't want to discard,
Yeah.
especially with Crobat in this deck. You might feel the same way. Um, I feel the benefits outweigh the risks a little bit, but
Yeah.
you might feel differently. So it's kind of a try it and see. You can totally opt to take out one or two. You would have to add in something else like Birch's Observation, which is another risk reward type of card. Um, with the coin flip, I'm not a big fan of coin flip cards. I like definitive results, and I like to know how things are going to pop out before you play it, and you just can't tell with observation. And there are going to be times where you need seven and you get four, or you're really looking for a card and four is just not enough to guarantee you that
Yeah.
card or give you uh, a really good chance to get it. So I opted for four Sycamore. There might be times where I regret throwing away a few Golbats and Crobats, but I think it's something I'll just have to deal with, and maybe even Mega Manectric. But since he's not the core of the deck, I think that's a little bit more manageable to throw him away than the Crobat line. I also set up four Zubat, three Golbat, three Crobat. Because I feel like Zubat is one of those cards that once you get it, you can put it down, but Golbat and Crobat, you have to hold on to them. So they're less likely. Zubat is less likely to be Sycamored away than Golbat and Crobat. So um, you put an extra one in, and it just helps you set up more.
Yep.
Um, all right. What else? Judge. Um, are we opposite on this in terms of opinion, Pat?
I think that we are opposite on it. I
How do
am
you feel
not.
about
I
Judge?
am not completely sold on Judge. The reason why is because when we did have Judge back in the day, we didn't have strong supporters like Sycamore or N in the expanded format. We didn't have cards like that. Well, that was around what Holland format Delta,
Uh,
I
yes.
believe
Maybe
so. Yeah,
I'd have to check. I don't
level
remember.
X's, but I believe so if I'm not mistaken. But we'll definitely get that information later.
Well,
But
we had during what was it
we had Stevens,
transceiver.
we had
We had
Stevens,
Stevens. We had decent
we had
supporter
decent,
lineup.
but the supporters are not the way they are now. These supporters are monstrous. We have trainers mail. We can mill through our decks. Like I literally, when I was playing in the cities in Chantilly, um, I think I did a 4-2, but the only reason why I lost is literally because I decked out.
Okay.
Like
Well,
I
I mean,
decked out.
I
It
went.
was I would never deck out so much back then like I do now because
Mhm.
we just have so much stuff to like. All right, I'll play
Go
this.
through.
I'll play this. I'll play this. I'll play this, and you're
Our
not
trainer,
stalling. Yeah,
our items are just so powerful
yeah.
right now.
They were never. I think the most powerful item we ever had back then was Versus Seeker, but then again, our supporters weren't as powerful as they are
As they
now.
are now.
And Transceiver, those were like the most.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are. Yeah, those were the most powerful items, I believe. Or
I
so,
included I included Judge in this
yeah,
only because um I just it's kind of like the lesser of two evils in my opinion.
yeah. I
Uh
mean, don't get me wrong. I believe Judge is a great card. It's awesome for standard. But the thing is, when you play expanded, would you play Judge? It's too many good
oh,
things.
absolutely not. You would play in
Yeah,
100%.
exactly.
Um
But
but I
Judge
mean,
is good. It's just I haven't had the best of luck with it.
I I thought we were going to be in opposite opinion, but I'm kind of 50-50 on it myself
Yeah,
actually. I I like it more now less for the disruption and more for the hand refresh. And
yeah.
that sounds so weird to say it
I
that way,
would
but
say
like
yeah,
because if that was the case, then why not play Shauna or even
exactly.
Birch's observation? But the problem with to me, Shauna is five and it's really solid. I don't actually mind Shauna at all, but I feel like Judge gives you the option of rather than late game disruption, more so early game disruption. So
Yeah,
imagine your opponent has one basic and they start with six cards or seven or eight if you mulligan however many
they're
times,
definitely gonna
A-
have that supported there. Yeah,
and if you start with Judge, that's just like going down to four. That's like them starting with five card hand and you starting with a six or 10 or whatever it is, and that's just really strong to put
oh
them
yeah.
back even a
I mean,
turn
I like it. I definitely like
potentially.
it in the beginning. Yeah, yeah. It has the potential to do some disruption with their hand. Like they can be planning, and then they have to go like back to the drawing board. You're like, damn. Oh man. Like that's not what I really wanted to do. I have to, revamp everything and go back to the drawing board. So
Well,
it is
yeah,
great for that, but that's still to be determined. Like
it's
I
still a
haven't.
little lacking. I agree
Yeah,
with you.
yeah. I think as time goes along and as we cycle out of the format, I think Judge will be better. Like that's one of those cards where we have to
It's
wait
kind
the
of like a way
time.
to see. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
agree with you. And
definitely.
and not only cycle through other cards, but also get new options from new sets and
Exactly.
see if
Yep.
anything else is stronger. Because if something else is stronger, then Judge is probably gonna get kicked out, and um,
I
I
like
guess
the
gonna bat
picture
an
though.
eye.
I like the picture though.
Me too.
The
It's
picture's
a
awesome.
referee. It's pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
The artwork is pretty awesome lately. I like it.
Yeah.
All right,
Next,
Giovanni.
Giovanni's. Wow.
This I'm such a big fanboy for this card, and nobody else seems to agree with me.
And he's dressed
Um,
really well.
well, Giovanni's always just really well. He's like a billionaire, right? Isn't he like the Donald Trump
The
of
Donald
Pokemon
Trump of Pokemon.
World? Yeah, why
Yes.
not? That
Why
sounds
not?
good, right? I feel like if Donald Trump could have Pokemon, he'd probably own a gym and everything too. And
He probably would own every
maybe,
gym.
maybe I don't know. That'd be kind of cool. Anyway, uh, I like this card a lot because it's a pseudo draw card, and I say pseudo because it's not the greatest draw power. It's like a really bad Bianca's, but um, I use it because it adds 20 damage anytime you want, and that's really really good. And if you don't need that, but you happen to need draw power and your hand is low, it's not terrible. Um, I don't mind it.
I would love it if I can draw it to a shaman every time I need the 5. That would
Or
be
if you
amazing.
use it, if you use a shaman and then get it this and then
Yeah.
do what you have to do, you know, I really like it a lot. It gives you options. Plus 20, it just adds to the theme of the deck of adding damage. It's a really solid card, at least to me. I can see how people can think is lacking, and if they feel that way, you can definitely take it out. But I would probably take out a judge before I take off this card and add something that adds a little bit more consistency. One thing you will notice is that there are no battle compressors in the deck. I feel like I could add one or two, but and if you wanted to, I would probably take out a Judge and a Raikou, but like, um, you probably only need one Raikou throughout the whole game, and battle compressors help with discarding stuff, but the deck doesn't really need to discard really anything besides lightning energies, and that's it. Supporters, and I feel like without a real big purpose for the deck, battle compressor is not necessarily needed. I could be
Yeah.
wrong, and it could be
I mean,
adding consistency to the
battle
deck.
compression is T, like to be determined. Like I believe that this is a deck that it's still relatively new, not Manectric necessarily, because it's different variants of Manectric, and Manectric bats have been played, but with the addition of Raikou and the addition of Giovanni's and different trainers, and the way
Yeah,
you just approach the game now, rather than when Manectric and bats were out like as that variant, because that's been out.
yeah,
Um, it's just a different way you approach the game and the meta,
I
in a whole.
I could
So
see that. I mean, well, I this deck, this version kind of opts for like a balance between the two versions of Manectric I've
yeah,
seen, where one will either focus solely on regular Manectric and no megas and no nothing, and it'll add more consistency cards, which I kind of agree with too. But it there's no tankiness to it, so you might just like find yourself in a tight spot if you get caught off guard. And I've seen decks that totally depend on Mega Manectric and gives you more options. But you could get kind of rushed down, maybe. I'm not sure. Maybe that version's a little bit better for my taste because it's a little slower and allows for more interaction with the opponent. But they both have their pros and cons. I try to meld the two and try to get the best of both worlds and see what was best. And I kind of like what I came up with. I feel like Battle Compressor might be the thing I add, but that's up to your discretion. It's something you would have to decide and see how you feel about certain cards that are already in this list. This is more so a guideline. Change it and tweak it however you see fit. All right.
next.
I, I added Lysander in the deck. I got another staple, but people play around with the number one and two of them, back and forth, based on either what deck they want to play
I think one
or
is the perfect number. Two is like, all right, I know I'm gonna rush you down. I know I'm gonna do this. It really depends on the deck, but one is that golden number because a
uh,
lot of people play four versus Seeker, which I do.
yeah. Um, here's where we differ on our opinions. I think two is kind of the magic number, and then you take out one if you need space or if the deck doesn't necessarily need the multiple copies. I feel like you need this card in almost every game. So because of that, you don't want prizes to mess you up and have the Lysander hidden there um, when you needed that to continue uh continue your I can't think of the right word, your momentum, or
Yeah,
change your opponent's
yeah.
momentum.
You
I
know what
feel
it
like
is? You know what it is? I'm greedy and I want everything.
I'm greedy.
I'm
I
greedy
think
and I want
I
everything and I want it
I
to
don't think
yeah.
I don't think one is a bad number. I think you can get away with one, and if it's never prized for you, then kudos. Like it's been
Yeah,
prized for
but
me.
I
It was
mean,
prized for me in top 16, and that's 2 years ago. That's why I lost twice in a
yeah.
row.
But
So like,
yeah, two
I
Lysander
have a
would have did
different,
it. Yeah.
yeah, and two lives ended would have did it. So it's kind of one of those things where like maybe your experiences differ, and if you can get away with one, definitely go with it. But I like two. The reason why one is here though is because you have the Crobat line, so you don't need to chase down every single Pokemon you see that's causing a threat on the bench. Your Crobats can deal with potentially half of them, and maybe even overruns and all that stuff, and you just get away with one Lysander and do it at the right time, and you're good.
Yep.
But yeah, pretty much what I said. Chases down those Pokemon on the bench that either try to retreat from the active and they're hurt, or are meant to be on the bench, like a Bronzong or a potential Slurpuffs, things like that. That you see. Even Shaymins, if you want to get those late game knockouts, this is the card to do it, and it's a staple in every deck. So, yep, I like that card a lot, and everybody should. Let's go with AZ first.
AZ.
AZ. Um, this card is one of those cards that you don't have to play, but I like playing it in standard mostly. Because like I said, the theme of standard seems to be prize denial, prize exchange, prize race, and this pretty much denies your opponent prizes if they can't get a one shot. You hurt. Something like regular Manectric, if he gets hurt for like a mirror match 120 or anything where they put a headringer on him, or something tries to poke you out like an evil tall into a evil tall EX or something like that, you can always AZ, and the commitment that you gave was one energy that you can bring back later. So like, this is really solid. It lets you use your Shamans again. It lets you use your Crobats again. That's really important, especially in this deck. Most decks don't necessarily have to deal with reusing a power that comes into play, except for Shamans, but you have multiple uses for this card, so I feel like it was necessary to include at least one. Zerasic. Zerasic has been seeing a lot of inclusion in this format, mostly because special energy cards are so prevalent now. More so double colorless, some double dragon, some flash, some strong. All those cards are kind of tough to deal with. Or either give your opponent a crazy amount of benefit for their strategy, and Zerasic just kind of is a reusable one of that keeps that in check. What I really like about Zerasic in this deck is that since I play a smaller copy, I guess, a smaller number of Mega Manectrics, you can put a Manectric Spirit Link on a Manectric, Mega Evolve him, and then take it off with a Zerasic. It might not be the most ideal play, but if you want to keep your tankiness for something that's already tanky with 210, you can put like an Assault Vest on him, and he's now 250 to anybody who hits him with special energies, or 290 or something along those lines. It's super powerful, and that would be in a situation where maybe you don't want to use a supporter, or you don't have another supporter to use, or your opponent doesn't play special energies for whatever reason. But it has multiple uses. It also can deny your opponent from Mega Evolving or have defense like Entei or anything like that. It's really helpful. I like it. Let's see. I'm forgetting stuff. I think that's all the supporters. Alright, let's hit trainers. Trainers. Let's go with Ultra Ball. For Ultra Ball. Gets every Pokemon. Discard 2 cards, so that's really helpful with energies. Yeah, pretty simple, pretty easy.
Yep. Pretty straightforward.
Pretty straightforward, yeah. I'm gonna make a quick change here, because it's bothering me. I'm gonna change the 3 flash and put 6 energy because I feel like you don't need it so much. Sorry about that. Editing on the fly. Oh, another staple. VS Seeker. VS Seeker is it's the card that allows every deck to play those one of supporters that are tech for the format. So it pretty much becomes the supporter toolbox. It adds more consistency with Sycamore. So like essentially you have 8 Sycamores to use. Um, Given that you get at least one Sycamore early. These become Sycamores. Um, it also allows you to use multiple Zerasics, multiple AZs, multiple Lysanders, Giovannis, even Judges. Um, everything that's a supporter. This is an extra copy, extra 4 copies of them potentially. So really broken. Necessary in every deck in 4. I would not even go lower than that. Next card. We'll start with Muscle Band. Muscle Band. Um, it's I would say I guess it's a staple in every deck because it adds 20 to every attack that you have. Um, and it's pretty much one of the defining factors in determining whether something is a knockout or a 2-hit knockout at times. So you should play it. I play 2. Most people play 3. Some people even play 4. But I play 2 because there's a few tools in the deck, and some of them had the spotlight, so you kind of don't want to get stuck with more tools than you can use. Um, but Muscle Band's inclusion is a necessity. It adds extra damage and easy to put on anybody, especially a Pokemon who has a 1 energy hit. 40-20 is pretty solid for first turn. And it can set up for future knockouts with Crobats and whatnot.
Yep.
Let's see. I have Headringer. Headringer is one of those cards that's more metagame based. I think it's flawlessly included with the Manectric deck because it forces your opponent to have a tool when they may not want it, considering they are fighting against Manectric with an EX. Not only does it add plus 60 forcefully with Manectric's Assault Laser, but it also denies your opponent from potentially attacking by adding an extra energy cost to their attack. I touched on it before. I'm going to say it again. Headringer might force your opponent to add a special energy like Double Colorless, maybe Double Dragon, or maybe the only energy in their hand is a special energy and they didn't want to put it down, so now they have to. In which case, Assault Vest can come in and defend you when they had to attack you. It puts them in situations where they have to choose the worst option as their only option, and that's good for you. Pretty good card. It evens up also mirrors and any big EX that you may not one shot but can potentially one shot you. You can stop them in their tracks. Also, you can put on Shaman if you feel like it, but kind of a waste. I went through that. Let's Manectric Spirit Link. Self-explanatory. I have 2 Manectrics. I have 2 Spirit Links. You need it to evolve into Mega, or you'll end your turn. Pretty easy, pretty standard.
Yep.
You need it.
Not much to say about it.
Not much to say. Super Rod. I include Super Rod because I played 4 Sycamores and I didn't feel like there were any other supporters that were necessary for the deck. That were more shuffle in. I feel like Sycamore is the best option for consistency. So to fix the problem that Sycamore creates by discarding too much, I have Super Rod. I have the potential to put back discarded Golbats, Crobats, Megas, Raikous if I need it. Even energies. Most of the time you don't want to put back energies, but maybe you do if you run out. Super Rod is a one-of. You might discard this card too. That's the biggest issue that you might have, but just having it in the deck just gives you the option to.
I've seen people play 2 because of that reason also, but I mean, I don't like to play 2. I mean, the reality might be that you might have to play 2, but for now, I think 1 is
1 is the safe.
Yeah, it's really safe
number.
Because if you
2,
get
I
stuck
feel like
with 2 of them, you're like, yeah, you get stuck. It's a dead card that could be a supporter that you can draw into versus a Super Rod when you don't need it, especially in the beginning of the game. You need that. Yeah. So in the beginning of the game, you want to blast off at the speed of light, as Team Rocket would say. You really want to blast off and get your setup early, so you can
Yep.
you know, go into your strategy, your deck,
Yep.
mid game.
Awesome. Pretty much the same thing. I barely like playing 1, but I have to. 2 is too much for me, but I see other decks that can feel it's necessary, and that's up to your discretion. It fixes that little Sycamore issue, and that's it. I feel like you have enough Pokemon, so it's not really to bring back the Pokemon. It's more so to bring back things that you discarded. Super Rod is, I feel, is needed. Assault Vest, I touched on it earlier, so it's not much to say. Anybody who plays Special Energies, which is most of the format, if they fight somebody with an Assault Vest, you take less than 40. So I could turn 1 shots into 2 shots, 2 shots into 3 shots, in which case it gives you the opportunity to use AZ and prevent the damage or the knockout altogether. It's one of those cards that is more proactive rather than reactive, and I like reactive cards a little better. I don't know if anybody's going to really understand what I mean by proactive versus reactive, so I'm going to explain. Proactive is a card that you use, at least my usage of the term proactive is a card that you include in the deck to avoid an action from happening, or to at least defend from it. So like Assault Vest is one of those. Headringer is a proactive card. Judge, those are all proactive cards. You're trying to defend against something or disrupt something from happening. Reactive card is to respond to your opponent after that's happened with a card that that fixes the problem or compensates for it. So AZ is a reactive card. Zerasic is a reactive card. Zerasic can be both, but for the most part it's reactive. Giovanni's Scheme is reactive. You add the extra 20 right away. It just happens instantly, so it's really good. But I include Assault Vest because it's really strong, and this format kind of caters to it, so I kind of like it. 2 of it works for Raikou at minus 60. That's ridiculous on a Raikou. So Raikou could be a big tank, bigger than you even expect. Really awesome. It might get countered, but I think it's worth the risk. Trainer's Mail. This is pretty much to boost consistency. I don't like any other supporter in the metagame right now. So, Trainer's Mail is here to find the supporters that are in the deck that I do like. It's 4. You don't really discard anything, so it's not too much risk, and there's a lot of reward to go for it. Pretty awesome. Pretty good. Last card. No. Second to last, third to last, whatever. Level Ball. I added 1 because I feel like the main part of the deck is Zubats and Crobats. I mean, Zubats and Golbats. So to get them as fast as possible is prudent. Level Ball allows you to do that. Extra 1. It never hurts to get it, I believe. You'll never feel bad for getting it unless you happen to get maybe 4 Crobats first turn. And even then, you can get Golbat from it. It's only 1, so it's not a lot of commitment to it. And I would say 99% of the time, you're going to be happy picking this up. Energies are pretty simple. 6 Lightning. It's not a lot of energies in the whole deck. It's only 9, but since you bring back energies at least once or twice per game, it's just enough. He only attacks for 2, so you're going to be able to be fine. And Crobat's going to pick up the pieces for 0. Raikou is kind of an energy hog, but I think 1 will be worth it. 6 Lightning is pretty regular. In the video, I took out 1 from 4 to put down to 3, but at least 3 Flash Energy. It counters Lucario. That matchup is really hard. This makes it somewhat manageable, and it counters Gallade. It can be countered again by the same card, Zerasic, so Zerasic is kind of like one of your worst enemies. But if you give him a lot to deal with, you can avoid certain situations with like Assault Vest, Zerasic, even Headringers, things like that. They'll have to choose what they have to take off for Zerasic. So, you know, it's kind of throwing the kitchen sink at them and see what flies, what sticks. I don't know if that's a saying, but I just made it up.
Yeah.
Right.
Sounds good.
Sounds good, right? Alright. So, I'm going to find a match, play with this deck, show you guys how it works, and when I come back, I'll be in that match, and me and Pat will do playthrough. Play by play. Play by play, guys. See you then.